You ever play one of those free mobile games? Well, what if I told you that one of them holds the key to a multi-billion-dollar story? A story about corporate power, hidden rules, and pretty much the entire internet as we know it. That's exactly what we're diving into today. So, picture this. You're playing a game, it's called Minigore 2, and all of a sudden you get hit with this ultimatum. You can either click this Google ad, or you can just sit there and wait for 30 minutes. Yeah, half an hour. It's not really a choice, is it? It's more like a demand. And that really gets you thinking, right? Is that even allowed? Can a developer really hold your game hostage and force you to click on an ad? Well, the answer to that question is way more complicated and honestly way more fascinating than you'd expect.
Okay, so let's dig into this. We're going to start with this one little incident because it's the perfect tiny example of a huge system-wide problem.
I mean, it just feels wrong, right? It's coercive, it feels like a shakedown. The player wasn't just being shown an ad, they were being forced to do something. So what did they do? They got curious. They decided to look up the rules of the game. And I'm not talking about the rules for Minigore 2. I'm talking about the rules for Google's own massive advertising game.
So to really get to the bottom of this, we need to understand what tool the developer was even using. See, this wasn't just any old ad you see on a website. It was a very specific and very powerful service from Google called Adsense for Search. What Adsense for Search, or AFS, does is pretty simple on the surface. It lets a website owner pop a custom Google search box right onto their own site. So let's say you're on a tech blog and you search for new smartphones. You'll get articles from that blog, sure, but you'll also see some ads for phone cases or new models. That's AFS, and it's how publishers make some cash from their own site's search bar.
Okay, and here's the key difference, and you gotta pay attention to this. Regular ads, the banner ads you see everywhere, those are passive. You just kind of see them as you scroll by. But AdSense for search ads, they only show up because you actively did something. You decided to search. That distinction between passive and active, it's everything. And boom, there's our answer, black and white. Google's rules are super, super clear on this. You cannot, I repeat, cannot pay people or give them anything of value to look at or click on ads. And letting a player skip a 30-minute wait, that is absolutely a form of compensation. So yeah, the game developer was breaking one of the biggest rules in the book. So when the Reddit user actually reached out to the developer, this is what they said back. They genuinely thought they were in the clear. It just goes to show you how confusing this whole ad world can be. But it also shows that, well, at best, they really didn't understand the rules.
Now, this particular story actually has a pretty good ending. The whole thing blew up online, the developers saw it, and they apologized. They explained how hard it is to make money on a free game, which is fair, but they did the right thing. They took the game down and then re-released it without that 30-minute timer. So hey, community pressure worked. But this whole thing is so much bigger than just one developer making one mistake.
Because now we're going to zoom way, way out. It turns out that while this small indie developer was bending the rules on this tiny individual level, Google itself was found guilty of breaking the exact same rules, but on a massive global market-crushing scale. Look at that number, 1.49 billion euros. That's the fine the European Commission slammed Google with back in 2019. And guess what for? For abusing its market dominance with, you guessed it, AdSense for search. Yeah, the EU Commission discovered that Google wasn't just handing out a useful tool. Oh no, it was using AdSense for search as a weapon to shut down its competitors. For over 10 years, they were rigging the game to make sure nobody else had a fighting chance. And here's how they pulled it off. Starting way back in 2006, if you were a website and you wanted to use AdSense for search, Google's contract said you were forbidden from using any competing search ads. Total lockdown. A few years later, they eased up a little. They introduced something called premium placement, which basically forced websites to put Google's ads in all the best spots, pushing any competitor's ads down to the bottom where no one would ever see them. And this is the official word from the EU. This wasn't just some squabble between big companies. Their investigation found that Google's actions were hurting everybody. Competitors couldn't get off the ground, you and I as consumers had fewer choices, and the whole engine of innovation just stalled.
So you see what's happening here? It's literally two sides of the exact same coin. You've got the game developer breaking the rules to squeeze a little money out of one player, and then you have Google breaking the same kinds of rules to lock down an entire industry. The scale is just mind-bogglingly different. But the core problem, abusing the system for your own gain, it's identical.
And really, this whole situation boils down to this constant battle that's happening inside any company that relies on ads. It doesn't matter if you're a tiny game developer or the biggest search engine on the planet. Because when it's used the way it's supposed to be used, AdSense for Search is actually a pretty neat tool. It's meant to help you find stuff better on the sites you like, and it gives those site owners a way to make a little money without being super annoying. It's designed to be a win-win for everyone.
But it's always this delicate balancing act. On one side of the scale, you've got making the experience great for the user. On the other side, you've got the relentless pressure to make more and more money from ads. And in both of these stories, the little game and the giant corporation, that scale got tipped way too far in one direction. They chose money over a fair experience. And that's really the big takeaway here. This whole story about Minigore 2, it's not just about one crummy ad in a game. It's a tiny little snapshot, a microcosm, of the giant multi-billion-dollar fights over fairness and competition that are happening all over the internet right now. The rules are the same, and the temptation to break them is the same, whether you're a small fry or the biggest fish in the sea. So I'll leave you with this one last thing to chew on. On an internet that's funded by ads, where so many things are free, who's the real customer? Is it you, or are you the product that's being sold to the advertisers? Because how you answer that, well, it changes everything.